Brian Wolff is Executive Vice President of the Edison Electric Institute. He has a career that started in Washington, not his career, but in Washington, working in the U.S. Senate. And now he is the chief political officer. Would that be a reasonable description?
I would call it policy officer.
Policy officer at the Edison Electric Institute. Yes. Welcome to the broadcast. Very fine convention you've had here. A lot of new ideas, movement. An industry that was static is now quite mobile. Right. What's going on?
I think you're exactly right, Llewellyn. I think that what you're seeing here at the convention is really the convergence of the demonstration of what we've talked about, which is the industry is clearly in a state of transformation. And I think that you can see that here. A lot of the companies that you see and the technology that you see and the demonstrations that you see at this convention are really about the people that we're currently partnering with. So I think that's a real demonstration of our commitment to innovation, clearly our commitment to answering what the customer is really wanting and what they're wanting to see with regards to electricity use, and also what they're seeing at home. You know, it's not anymore about just the environmental challenges that we face as an industry. It's really now more about choice. And what we're seeing is they really want to see technology innovation available to them.
Explain the choice. And when I turn on my light switch, as everybody does, I don't feel I have a lot of choice.
Right.
I don't have a lot of complaint either,
right.
But I don't have a lot of choice. How does the customer have choice in the setup we have?
Well, the transformation that I just mentioned, if we think about the history of it all, you know, electricity was flowing one way, right? We were flowing one way and we were communicating with our customers one way. That's once a month. Okay, now we're seeing electricity flow in two directions, okay? So what we're actually experiencing now, which is the increased investment that we have, almost $35 billion in 2014 alone on the distribution side of the grid. So we're seeing grid modernization, we're seeing actual smart grid applications with regards to technology, and we're seeing customer-enabled technology, you know, being able to flow across the grid.
So with the data, the customer is more empowered in how they use electricity.
That's right.
There's a company called OPower that is quite important.
Sure.
I happen to have found out that I'm on it. I get a bill that shows how much electricity I use compared to my neighbors.
Right.
And which is quite an incentive to use less, actually.
Absolutely.
Because you get rather sort of competitive with the Joneses.
Absolutely. I get the same thing. And, you know, I always like to see where I am. Am I good? Am I very good? You know, where do I fall in with my neighbors? I think the behavioral aspects of what we're seeing with regards to technology, whether it's handheld technology or it's in-home energy management, I think what we're actually seeing is behavioral aspects of changing, you know, and I think that technology is really bringing about what customers want to see.
What are we going to see down the road? What are we going to see in 5, 10 years? Are we going to see the companies we have today, the structure we have today, or are we going to see them broken into lesser units or larger units?
Well, I think that a little bit of both. I think that what you're seeing here and the companies you see demonstrating here, really these technology companies, energy technologies that have energy technologies that we're looking for, they're really our partners for tomorrow. You know, so what we're looking to do is be able to shape what is exactly a comprehensive energy solution for our customer. The environmental rules that we're currently seeing coming out with the carbon rules that we'll see, the decarbonization of our society and certainly of our industry. We represent about 38% of all of the economy-wide emissions with regard to carbon. You'll see that in really the culmination of those with technology, you know, will be about enabling energy efficiency, you know, demand response in your home. You know, we'll be able to see those really come to fruition, because some companies may choose, hey, we're not going to build that additional, you know, plant. What we're going to do is be able to communicate with our customers to be able to use less energy, so therefore they might be able to produce or generate less energy or buy less energy for the home. So that really is going to be the future of where we see the industry.
Briefly, is the cost of electricity going to go up, remain constant, or decline?
Llewellyn, that's a big question. If you look though, if you think about right now today, we spend 1.5% of your personal household consumption is on electricity. 1.5%. That hasn't changed since 1959. Okay, so if you look at the transformation we're going through, we have to be thoughtful about how we do that. If you look at other countries, particularly in Europe, you could look at other developed countries that are currently living in energy poverty because their average bill is about $350 per household. Can you imagine? So I think the transformation has to be thoughtful. You know, we have to think about what we're going to look like in the future, whether it's a decarbonized, economy and society, what we're going to look like as far as technology and innovation. So we have to be able to chart that out, because if you look at the entire regulated utility business model, which is integrated, it works simply because we're able to prioritize what is best for the customer to be able to have affordable, reliable, and increasingly clean electricity.
What is the role of the federal government here?
Well, the role of the federal government is clearly going to be about what is it going to be to ease that cost for customers, because you're passing along those costs directly to the household. So where we could sort of work with them on federal policy, the environmental rules will roughly be behind us as far as the Clean Air Act. What we're really going to be looking at is infrastructure, energy infrastructure. How do we get energy from point A to point B, whether it be overall transmission, distribution of gas distribution system, whether it is working with, how do we deal with variable resources like wind and solar on our systems, how do we deal with the overall issue of power quality? Look at what Hawaii is dealing with. You could plug in something into a socket in Hawaii that could really be an issue for your devices. They could burn up just by nature of the surges in power that they're seeing from the variability of resources. That's where we could deal with real constructive, thoughtful and factual.
There are no big issues on Capitol Hill for utilities at the moment. The last one, I think, was the dividend,
right,
which the industry essentially prevailed in.
Right. We're currently in the middle of both Chairman Upton and Chairman Murkowski in the House and Senate have large energy bills in front of their committee. I imagine they're going to push energy legislation this year. We have it with regards to energy infrastructure, workforce issues, issues that we support as an industry. It's acknowledgement of the fact that it can take years to be able to have get a transmission project off the ground. We no longer have the ability to wait 9 to 13 years on average for a transmission line to be built in this country. So we really, because of the changing nature of our electricity business, we need to also have that reflected in what the current needs are. And I do believe the DOE's quadrennial energy review, I think it did a good job at outlining some of those, but I think that Chairman Upton and Chairman Murkowski have it right in the priorities that they're going forward with right now.
So to sum up, you might say that these disruptive technologies, the green technologies, in fact are being embraced rather than resisted by the established utilities?
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because, if you think about it, Thomas Edison was the original disruptor. Okay, he and Harvey Firestone, if you remember, and John Burroughs, those guys went on camping trips for 10 years. They went on camping trips and they went and talked about innovation and what they saw happening in this country and the direction that this country would be going in. And I think that when you talk about the original disruptor of Thomas Edison, I think the one thing that we can't afford is to have a sense of disruptive complacency. We have to be able to, just like any other industry, we need to go out and be able to embrace that change, acknowledge we're in the middle of a transformation, and then be able to see where we need to be in the future and chart that path. And I think we're doing that.